Hello and welcome to the latest edition of What Does the Giraffe Say Media. We are an organisation that aims to connect people with conservation and wildlife work around the world by holding live interviews on social media. Today I am very happy. I am joined by Claire Einhorn, and she is the founder of MARES based in Zimbabwe. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Claire, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to start the organisation.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Well, I was born here in Zimbabwe, in what is now Harare, and lived there for the first 20 years of my life. We moved down to South Africa for a few years and then decided, after having children, that we would bring them back, that they could have the more natural life that we ourselves had growing up. And obviously, all during that time, there were various rescues. We did little lion cubs, black-backed jackal, Brahmin. We were always with wild animals in our house. It's just how my children grew up. And I've been doing that, mainly rescuing horses. 22 years ago I started, and the donkeys have been in the last 4 years.
Okay. And what's the general perception of donkeys in Zimbabwe? And kind of following on from that, how do you work with the communities to kind of change this?
Initially, we've seen that the conception of donkeys by the local people is not really good because they feel that they don't have a cash value like a cow or a sheep or a goat. And we are trying to go into the rural areas and explain to them that their donkeys, if they look after them, will look after the people for up to 20 years and will give them a value, not in cash in their hands, but overall in their livelihoods of over $6,000 in their life. And we are trying to emphasize that the woman in the rural areas should be taking control of the donkeys because they're the ones that do most of the work, the plowing, the fetching of the water, collecting children. And we are trying to change this conception that donkeys are worthless. In monetary terms, yes, but in their livelihoods, in the families, they are priceless.
And what sort of, when you're first going into these communities, is it something that you, how do you kind of educate them? Are you doing training sessions? What kind of work are you doing here?
Well, what we do is that we try and work with the chief first because he is revered by all the people in the village and what he says goes. So we approach the chief first and we try to, well, he's on our side starters because we show them the differences in our good humane padded harnesses as opposed to the ill-fitting harnesses. And we are welcomed and we get nothing but success in the rural areas. And they can't wait for us to come back for a next one. Like we've just done our third one in a small area called Det, which borders the Wangi National Park. So you can imagine the problems, the conflict of their domestic animals with the wild animals. So, we educate them on trying to cull the donkeys at night because we've just had an incident a couple of weeks ago where a donkey was attacked by a hyena quite badly. So we do all that form of education as well as the harnessing and hitching. Correct balancing of the Scotch carts is very, very important. We get a lot of Scotch carts that are overloaded and that causes a lot of the injuries.
Yeah. So I know from following you guys on Facebook, and if you're watching back home, please do check out their Facebook page. You're kind of going back in time and using methods that were used previously for the donkeys. Why did these methods change, and is it easy accessible for the local communities?
Yes, well, we think there was just almost like a breakdown in communication. Nowadays, you'll see the people hitting the donkeys with a stick, but if you go back 100 years, it wasn't a stick. It was a whip with a long piece of leather tongue, which they would crack above the donkeys' heads. So if they wanted the donkeys to turn left, they would crack it over the right-hand donkey, and the noise would force them to turn to the left way. And over the years, it's been broken down, and it's ended up being a short, even like a knobkerry, that beats them. And so we're trying to go back in time and say, this is how you're meant to use it. It is not a stick to beat them.
Yeah. And then with the new harnessing methods and that kind of stuff, is that something that they can get themselves, or is that something that you fund?
We have been very fortunate that in the last year, more and more organizations are seeing what we're doing, and we've been fortunate to have an organization that has come on board to fund them so that we can give them out free of charge. We do have a policy that any donkey that has harness wounds, they are not allowed to get the harnesses, our new harnesses, until their donkey's wounds have healed. Right. And this it forces them to look after the donkey because they want the new harnesses. And it's a very simple method. It's there, but it's just been broken down. They normally attach a long piece of wood onto their cart. And we noticed that they knew there was wood there, but they didn't know what it was. And it was actually, if you go back 100 years, there were swingle trees. And so we cut that wood off and we make the swingle trees, which the harnesses are then attached to. Therefore, you don't have the rubbing because the harnesses move with the donkeys and not onto the cart.
Yeah.
So it's very cheap. It's very easy for them. And we have sourced very cheap materials such as used conveyor belting, and we are hoping to get the communities to make the harnesses themselves.
Brilliant. So it's kind of going back to them as well and giving them some funds too.
Yes,
absolutely. And then for those who aren't quite sure, what's the situation with the swingle trees? How does this work?
Well, the swingle trees actually allow movement. You can imagine a donkey trotting along. It goes side to side. But if the harness is connected to the cart, it is fixed, and then it rubs raw. Whereas if the harness is connected to a swingle tree that moves with the donkey, the harness moves with the donkey. So there's no rubbing wounds. Yeah. And again, swingle trees were there hundreds of years ago. It's nothing we've invented. We've actually just brought it back. Same with the hitching of the donkeys. They make the chains very, very short, possibly because they could be a bit expensive. And so they are too close to the Scotch cart, which often when they stop the donkey, the Scotch cart crashes into their legs, quite often breaking the legs. And so that's a very important education. We have also found out that everywhere you go, especially in Zimbabwe, I can't say for anywhere else, but in Zimbabwe, you will always see 4 donkeys across. But understand that only the 2 donkeys with the yoke on their neck is carrying the load and pulling. The other 2 donkeys are just superfluous. They're just trotting along, doing nothing. And again, going back 100 years, it was because they used to travel long distances. So they would have, like spare tires, they would have spare donkeys. And they would go 10 miles, then they would rest. They would take the 2 working donkeys and put them on the outside, and they would take the 2 outside donkeys and put them in. So that's where the breakdown has been. So when we explain, and we actually make the donkeys, so we put the heavy loads on the Scotch cart while there's 4 in a row, and the 2 on the outside are just watching the 2 in the middle crumbling because they're the only ones holding. And when they physically see that for themselves, then they understand that they do not need 4 donkeys, they only need 2.
That's so interesting. I mean, that's a whole kind of history there that I hadn't even considered. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so I know alongside the work that you're doing with the communities and with the harnesses and that sort of stuff, you kind of touched on it briefly earlier, but you also have your sanctuary. So can you talk to us a little bit about your sanctuary and how do the animals typically come to you?
Well, we found out that sanctuary probably isn't the right name because people see it as like a petting zoo, but it definitely isn't. Is that even in the little satellite areas that we are now doing, like Det and Buhera and Victoria Falls, we have what we call a sanctuary. It's a place where if there's a very injured donkey, it's a place where it can go there, rest, and be rehabilitated. As the vets tell us, it's 10% medicine and 90% time and TLC that will get a donkey right. And so primarily our sanctuary is exactly that. And most of the donkeys that come in have been injured, a lot of them car accidents, overloading, injured, sometimes fractured legs. And we go out and we collect them. And our sanctuary is a safe haven where we can rehabilitate them until they're ready. If we don't know the owners, which often is the case, we then find them loving forever homes with other people.
How do you make sure that the people that they go into are going to be looking after? Are these people that you've known before and have gone through the education process?
Absolutely. You must understand, a lot of the donkeys we give back to the owners, but once they've had education. And it's just so uplifting that you see them come in and they see their donkey as just a piece of machinery. And once they've been with us, with their donkey, you suddenly see that compassion and empathy come into them. They haven't been taught that. And so it's very important that we give that to the people. And suddenly these are loving animals that they take back. And it's worth it. As we say, one donkey at a time. We can't help every donkey, but whichever ones we can, we will do that.
No, that's fantastic. And is it just donkeys that you have there? Do you have anything else there?
We have a whole menagerie. We have now 5 little rescued dogs come in during the last 3 years. We have the remnants from my horse rescue, which we did over 287 in the 5 years. And we've got the last 5 with another 4 horses coming in, being rescued for various reasons. We have peacocks, we have cats, we have tortoises, we have a very big sanctuary for hedgehogs, believe it or not. They're endemic in this area. And we went through the most horrific drought last year, compounded with the COVID. And as a result, a lot of these little hedgehogs were going into the domestic gardens looking for water and dogs attacking them. So in the last 6 months, we've probably done 28 little hedgehogs. And then once they've been rehabilitated, we release them. And any birds that we get, doves, mouse birds, you name it, we rehabilitate and then we release them as soon as they can fend for themselves.
And is that usually people in the local communities coming to you with these animals, or you're hearing about it from elsewhere?
I'd like to find out where the sign is that says, please drop all injured birds and cats off with us, because I don't know how we get known, but we do. And invariably I arrive at my little coffee shop, which helps me to fund the sanctuary. And there's a little cardboard box outside the back door, and you open it up and there's a baby bird or a kitten or a puppy or whatever it is. Yeah. But we won't turn anything away. So we do what we can.
And kind of feeding off a little bit from that, what are the challenges of running a sanctuary in Zimbabwe, and kind of how do you overcome this?
As I said, last year was unbelievable. Fortunately, with the COVID, my little coffee shop restaurant had to close, which gave me more time. The sanctuary is very close to my house, so it's walking distance, and it gave me more time to build more stalls. And during the COVID time, we collected 57 donkeys in the year. So we started off this time last year, in March last year, with 27 donkeys. By the end of the year, we were sitting with 70 donkeys at our stable. The challenge was feeding them. During the drought, we ended up having to get bales of grass from as far as Harare, 450 kilometers. The logistics of getting it to Bulawayo, the cost of the transport, which fortunately we had amazing, loving, willing people in Zimbabwe. They literally give their shirt off their back to help you when they don't have anything, but they're always willing. So we got all the transport for the bales free from a transport company. And so we call it the cosmic ordering service. We put it out there. It comes. We don't know how we do it, but we do it. And so every day is a challenge. Every day, it's exciting though. And we never know what we're going to wake up for. And that's basically, I think, how everybody in Zimbabwe lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is literally how we do it. There's no pre-planned. We get up each morning and we face the day. And at the end of the day, we say, well, that was a pretty good day, or that wasn't a really nice day. And we start again the next day. But down there is so much positive energy down at the sanctuary. All the animals get on. We have a pied crow that we've brought up from a baby. He's not sure what he is. He plays with the cats, sleeps with the cats, talks to anyone who will listen to him. The cats interact with the peacocks interact with the horses, and everyone just gets along there. It's the most incredible little sanctuary.
Absolutely love that. And I love the fact as well what you were saying there with the community all kind of coming together and helping to support you guys. I think it's kind of testament to the work that you're doing, that they obviously seeing the value in it.
Yes. Well, as I say, we would not be where we were if it wasn't for the support of the local people in Bulawayo and in the surrounding areas. And it gave COVID, you always take the positive out of the negative, and it gave us time to reflect on what we were doing and concentrate and come together with the local people. We don't want their donkeys. We would far rather have them. Unfortunately, there has been an increase in the theft by local people going into the rural areas and taking the donkeys from the rural areas to use in the townships. And that's where we're having the biggest challenge at the moment. And the cost, severe injuries, and the cost of getting them better, the medicines, which again, we have been very, very fortunate with the welfare organization in South Africa. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention organizations that help us, but Network for Animals have come forward, and they give us most of the drugs and medicines that we need to fix these donkeys that we collect.
And then we got a question coming through here from Stacey Satterfield. Hi, Stacey. She's a regular watcher back in America, and actually it was her that set me up talking with you in the first place.
My number one fan.
She is, and mine too. And she's asking, how can folks back home support your work? So you're talking about the people in the community supporting you, but is there a way for people in other countries to be able to support you, like either financially or with their time or anything like that?
Well, we're hoping that with COVID hopefully lifting, and that more flights coming in, and that there's going to be more access for people to travel, we would love to get volunteers to come if they would like to learn more about the donkeys, the community work we do, come out into the communities, work with us with the education. We would definitely love something like that. Financially, you can imagine everyone, we know the world has all suffered, and the finances aren't there, but obviously whatever funds we can get, we would be very appreciative of. We do have on our website, we do have our non-resident foreign account that is based in South Africa. We do have a foreign Nostro account here under the MARES name in Zimbabwe. We are just figuring that out because they've only just allowed international payments. We are in the process of putting a Pay Now GoFundMe onto our website, where people will be able to fund us that way as well. But absolutely anything like that.
We've mentioned it throughout, and I think there's no conversation that can happen in the world at the minute without touching on COVID. Did you find that you mentioned that you got an increase in donkeys? Was this because people were struggling to look after their animals during this time?
Very much so. I think it was very much a combination of the COVID, people being sent home because there was no work, and very much the drought as well. And so the drought was so bad that we were at times getting municipal water, only once every 10 days. And in the townships, they actually switched the water off, and they were bringing bowsers in, where people would start queuing at 4 o'clock in the morning to get their 20 liters of water. And of course, that created demand to bring in the donkeys and the Scotch carts to start delivering water to all the houses in the township, and that just snowballed. And so that's where the problem happened. And theoretically, no donkeys, according to council, are meant to be in the municipal areas, but the economy and the COVID and the drought, all the combination has forced people to break the law just to survive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I completely understand. So as well as the donkeys, I know from today, for example, you've also do a cat neutering project. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what that entails and why it's so important to do it?
Well, we've been very fortunate that for the last 3 years, we have had a wonderful vet who comes out from the United States, and she's retired and she does pro bono sterilizations. And so it's not very big. We're still working on it, but there again, people couldn't afford the very expensive vet cost to spay and neuter, and as a result, we have had this cat population explosion. And we're not talking about the rural areas. We're talking right in the middle of the Bulawayo suburbs, and we are catching cats, feral cats, sterilizing them. We notch their ears because we have had an incident where we have caught a cat, sterilized, released, caught it, and then can't find the spay because it was actually a male that we sterilized. Yeah. So to make sure we don't do that again, we notch the ears so we can see which cats we have done. And we put them back where we found them because they've survived there. We just don't want them to breed.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I know there's plenty of countries where there is a big issue with a feral cat, so it's so important that we do these kind of things. Yes. So you said yourself, it's something that you've been doing for a long time, working with animals and rescuing animals and that kind of stuff. What do you know now that you wish you knew at the start when you were setting up your sanctuary? And if someone was looking at you wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
Believe in yourself. Trust that you are able to do it. I wish I had the confidence now. 20 years ago, I probably would have been far more dedicated. I often, especially doing the harnesses, which I've only been doing for the past 3 years, I keep looking and thinking, this is too easy. I'm doing something wrong because why hasn't someone else done this? And I didn't trust myself, and I do now. And I know that we are going in the right direction. And as I said, right from the beginning, 80% of all the wounds on the donkeys that we find have been caused from ill-fitting harnesses. And I've been advocating, why fix the wounds? Fix the cause. And the cause are the ill-fitting harnesses. And that is, as I say, one donkey at a time. And we hope that we will have that ripple effect, that we can pass it on to other people, which fortunately we have. We've got a wonderful lady in Zambia, in the Zambezi working donkey. They've replacing all the harnesses. We've been doing some work in South Africa, replacing harnesses. And I don't mind who makes the harnesses, so long as they're made correctly and it's going to benefit donkeys. That's the most important thing, I find.
Yeah, I love that. And then how do you share that message and get people to know what it is that you're doing so then they can do something similar?
I think it's been through word of mouth. We're getting more and more people following us, and I do have to admit I'm not really good on Facebook or anything, but I do try and put something out every week, something positive that people will want to keep on following us. And we have now been making these little what we call our little satellite sanctuaries, and it's working really, really well. We train the people and the local people in that area. They come back to our sanctuary. We train them on basic wound management, donkey care, and education. And we give them all the goodies to go back to their rural area, and they then go and teach the people in their area. And we are hoping to go to other areas, to Gwanda, to Bight Bridge, to all these other areas that are desperately needing our help and our harnesses.
I love that as well, that you're empowering others as well to go and spread that message and also take that responsibility and the lessons learned into the communities.
It's our most important thing, is just education. People aren't deliberately cruel to their donkeys. They just haven't been taught. And if we can educate them, that's the most important thing. It's education, education, education.
Absolutely. I love as well what you were saying there about with your social media, that you try and focus on the positives as well, because I know it can get incredibly overwhelming and sometimes incredibly disheartening when all you're getting is bombarded with negativity and just how much work needs to be done. So I do think it's so important to also kind of spread the positive as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've only got one more question left. If you're watching back home and you would like to put a question to Claire, then please just pop it in the comment section, and I will put that to her. Or if you're watching this later and it's not live, do feel free to put the questions in and one of us will come back to you. So from me, Claire, kind of following on just what we was talking about, I always like to end things on a positive note. So I would absolutely love to hear what your favorite success story has been.
Without a doubt, it is our little donkey that we named May. We named her May because we found her last year in the COVID, in the month of May. And she was such a pitiful sight. She had been obviously hit by a vehicle. She had a broken leg. She had a broken pelvis. She had a massive hernia where the impact had been. And she was heavily pregnant. And we weren't sure. We were told it would be kinder to put her down. But we could see in her eyes, she just wanted help. So back to the sanctuary, she went every day. We nursed her hooves. We helped her to walk. And then we could see her milk coming in, little teats filling up. And we knew that this foal was going to come any day. And literally about 3 days before she gave birth, we noticed that she was actually, instead of dragging her legs, which she was doing when we found her, she was actually starting to walk. And 3 days later, gave birth to the most beautiful little filly, which we named Hope, because May gives us hope. And she is the most incredible mom. She's our mascot. And if she can enjoy life based on what she's gone through, we deserve to give every single other donkey a chance.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love the symbolism of that as well, that she came from such a rough background and still managed to kind of shine through and show the determination to survive.
Oh, donkeys are the most stoic animals you've ever. But when you've had a donkey, you cannot believe how loving they are. They're the most incredible, intelligent animals that I have ever worked with.
Well, we've had some lovely comments coming through all throughout the show. So lots of positive feedback, lots of people saying that you're doing a great job. Lots of people saying they're admiring the work that you're doing. So there's a lot of people cheering you on from all different countries in the world. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on. And again, if you've enjoyed watching this show and you would like to see other interviews, then please do follow us on What Does the Giraffe Say Media. And please also, as we mentioned earlier, go and follow MARES on their Facebook page and like, share and comment. The more people that engage, the more people get made aware of the incredible work that people are doing around the world. Claire, is there anything that you'd like to finish up with before we say goodbye?
Well, just to thank you for making people aware of the conservation around the world. It's really, really difficult. And I know you sometimes feel that you are drowning, but my favorite motto is every ocean starts with a drop of water. And you, that drop of water, that hopefully we will all have someone following us and helping to do what we've been doing. Thank you, Kathleen.
No problems. I can't say anything better than that. It's a lovely way to finish. Thank you so much. Thank you, Claire, for coming on, and thank you everyone back home for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.